Hello, this is Hugh. Welcome back. Just saw a Facebook video about how toxic America's Next Top Model is, and obviously I've never watched the show before, and I don't think I'm going to now. Apparently, one of America's favorite TV shows of yesteryear started in 2003, and they had 24 seasons, and it took them almost 20 years to figure out that and a reality TV show that would be shown across the nation and internationally, where young women would have to put up with grueling challenges that would make them face humiliation, cruelty, emotional abuse. Why that would cause some sort of mental health issue or cause some sort of unresolved traumas. I don't know why it took them almost 20 years to figure that out. Personally, I'm not really a big fan of most reality TV shows. I think I used to watch Big Brother as a kid. I don't know why, but they were watching it at my house. And ever since then, I realized how tacky reality TV shows were. I tried watching Made in Chelsea, but it was always the same nonsense. All these rich, spoilt kids complaining about how hard their lives are and how hard their lives and love lives are. And I'm like, oh my God, you guys are the kids and grandkids of some of the richest people in the country. Relax, your life's not that bad. But America's Next Top Model, obviously, if you've never watched the show, you would have gleaned from the context that it's about a bunch of young women, attractive young things, going into this competition. Obviously, tens of thousands of people would compete, and only 20 people would make the show. And then of those 20 people, they'd find one person to be America's Next Top Model. Obviously, very few people actually succeeded to go from that show to mainstream media, TV, and film, all of that stuff. I was just Googling the most successful people, and honestly, I can't be bothered naming them because it's not that important. But what I wanted to talk about was how toxic the show was. Now, I do agree that some parts of the processes that went into the backstage decisions, it was messed up. Whatever the backstage decisions were, what they did in front of the camera, behind the camera, what they did with the women, it wasn't great. I don't think it was very good. They did too many tests on these young women. Like they were about to go into the Olympics. I heard from one former model that they had to do urine testing, blood sample testing, and I'm like, what are they doing? Are you trying to like test them for drugs? Are they about to go into the Olympics? Are they trying to test for STDs? What is this? It seemed nonsensical to me, but hey, what do I know about the fashion industry? They talked about how problematic, quote unquote, the footage was about how they had all these black, white, and otherwise women go and do an African shoot, and they had this white girl wear African dress, and then this gay guy would come and say to a black lady, your African sisters or your black sisters would be so disappointed in you. And I'm just thinking, okay, I wouldn't be, I'm not offended by it. It's just so funny. It's so messed up. It's funny. Like, we all know that the Eurocentric fashion industry has been, how do I say this in the nicest possible way, adopting African cultures and traditions and fashion forever. Like this isn't new. So for them to turn around and go, "Oh, we don't like America's Next Top Model anymore because they did some African stuff and made all these Americans do some African stuff," personally, I feel like they're reaching. I mean, let's use some context here. It was how many goddamn years ago now? They probably tried to do something to honor African culture and heritage, and it was a little bit too cheesy. But I wouldn't be. I personally am not offended by it. But hey, each to their own when it comes to everybody's individual sensitivities. Just because I am not offended by it doesn't mean another black person or another person of African heritage wouldn't be or shouldn't be. Whatever. That's them. But I don't care. I'm just fascinated by the urine sampling and the blood testing like they're athletes or like they're supposed to be tested for diseases or drugs. I feel like that's too much. I heard about how they had a cash stipend. They would have $38 each to spend daily So they showed scenes where girls would steal each other's food, and I'm like, well, yeah, if you have to live on less than $40 a day, I wouldn't blame these idiots for stealing food from each other. Like I call them idiots because you didn't steal food, but at the same time, and when push comes to shove, these girls thought they were going to make so much money and they weren't even being paid to be on the show except for expenses. And apart from that, they had to do all these grueling challenges. I don't know. I don't care. All I know is that they were grueling challenges. Anything where these women have to convince these middle-aged judges that they're going to be the prettiest girl in the country. And one black girl came out and she had a gap tooth, and Tyra Banks of all people went, well, you're never going to be America's next top model if you have a gap tooth. When you went to the dentist, you should have had your gap tooth fixed. I'm like, bruh, this girl was getting brutally tortured emotionally and verbally in front of millions of people. Now, reality TV shows in general have always been messed up. I wouldn't call it problematic because I'm not some super left liberal. However, if you think about X Factor, American Idol, all this nonsense about, uh, you know, judging people based on their looks as opposed to their talent, and talking about, oh, if you're not too sexy, you're not gonna win, or if you're not young enough, you're not gonna win. That's always I've always found that to be pathetic. But what I don't understand is, why did it take these people almost 20 years to figure out that what's essentially an overrated beauty pageant contest where grown ass women are being treated like shit. What I don't know why it took them almost 20 years to to realize that that's not really the type of thing that should be on TV. I mean, obviously, back when it was being played on TV, back when it was on television, I'm sure had a cult like following. I'm sure it was one of the biggest in the country. But now, I mean, in this post skinny society where everybody's supposed to be loved as they are, now they're calling it toxic. I find that hilarious because back then nobody was calling it toxic. These girls would be abused, made fun of, humiliated on TV, and everybody seemed to love it, or at least even if people complained about it, it wasn't enough to get it taken off the air. It ran for 24 seasons, according to a 5-second search on Google. I feel that the real problem is these reality TV shows, the reason why they lasted so long, despite all the flaws that are being cherry picked now by the cancel culture society, these reality TV shows, they last so long because they are actually a near perfect indicator of what real life is. No matter what people try and tell you, people are going to like you more if you're, you know, smarter, more cunning, prettier, younger, more sociable, more extroverted, more charismatic. People are going to like you more if you're more of those things instead of less. People are going to like you less if you're socially awkward or a little bit weird or less attractive or a little bit more mature on the age side of things. People are not going to see you as good enough to be friends with or attractive enough. That's the way the world works. Obviously, money helps, looking good helps, working out helps, dressing well helps, being tall helps. If you're a guy or if you're a girl, especially if you're a guy, being tall helps. We all know how the real world works. So people go and watch these stupid reality TV shows like Love Island, even though 3 people have self-terminated themselves, including a former host. Like 3 people have died because of the show, and they're still trying to do Love Island. I'm not sure if it's on now. It might be, but it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. Like, they should just cancel that show. Instead of trying to come after Tyra Banks for something that happened 10 years ago, why don't we cancel Love Island? For goodness sake. People try and turn around and talk about how it's the best show on TV in the UK. It's terrible. But it is a real life indicator of how life works. These people are supposedly young, attractive, pretty, models. The men are bulky and tanned and muscly, and the women are slim and whatever the hell. like whether it's all natural or surgically made or they go to the gym, who cares? I think it's a bit of both of these people, but it's so cosmetic and fake and like just it's freaking plastic. That's the word I'm looking for. It's so goddamn plastic that I'm surprised that your show's still in the air. First of all, just like with America's Next Top Model, ordinary people, kids, women, men, teenagers, they're not going to look at these model type people and think, oh, wow, I love my body, I love myself. No, they're going to hate themselves. I don't know why people are obsessed with watching shows that make them hate themselves. I don't watch that nonsense. Life's hard enough, but people go and do it. There are people in their 40s that go watch people half their age hook up with each other because they're sexy and there's no substance. There's no connection. It's just because they look like surgically enhanced models because that's what they are. And it's sort of like America's Next Top Model. They just put pretty people who complement each other or make them work against each other, make them compete against each other for money if it's the model show, or for money and slash or love interest if it's Love Island, and it's pathetic and it's sickening. It's honestly sickening. It obviously causes mental health problems for the people that are on the shows. It definitely causes mental health problems for the people watching the show, especially younger, more impressionable people, such as, oh, I don't know, teenage girls. Imagine, damn near 20 years they've had America's Next Top Model, 24 seasons. They're talking, in that Facebook video I watched, where they're complaining about the show and how toxic it is, they mostly talk to people who were on the show, as they should, but they barely mentioned, if they mentioned it at all, about the millions of young girls that would have probably watched that show, looked at these extremely slim women and gone, oh, well, they're a size zero. I gotta be a size zero. I gotta puke. I gotta not eat my food so that I look like them. That should be mentioned. That's important because that causes long-term effects. I mean, science has shown that if these young women are out here puking their food out, trying to be super skinny with the anorexia and stuff, it's going to affect their menstrual cycle later on. They might not be able to menstruate. They might not be able to have kids. It's terrible. And it's partly because of shows like America's Next Top Model and Love Island and Big Brother and all these other freaking shows that glorify being extremely skinny and beautiful and young. And instead of just, glorifying people for being good people and for being who they are, it's too plastic and too cosmetic. It is an indicator, a good indicator of how real life works, but it's, unlike I said near perfect before, it's more twisted. So it's more warped. It's like some twisted Black Mirror dark type parallel reality where people are just the worst versions of themselves, but it's masked and like airbrushed over with the fakeness and the cosmeticness and the plasticness. And forgive me for the lack of proper language, but I'm a little bit tired. You know what people should be complaining about? How these shows keep being reproduced and regurgitated because it's one reality TV show, then they stop doing that, and then they do something a little bit different, but more of the same. How can we get less of those shows on TV and more of shows that encourage people to be who they are and to focus on their brain power, their skills, and use that to become famous and rich instead of just prancing around doing stupid stuff where they end up being humiliated and have to do with repressed mental trauma. But no, hey, let's just watch Love Island. All right. That's my little rant over. Hope you enjoyed it. And, well, Tyra Banks, if you're watching, I hope you enjoy your millions. Take care. Bye.